the presence of these advisors makes it clear that these candidates aren't serious about enforcing the murder laws, and that they're willing to kill civilians, foreign civilians, en masse in order to advance U.S. policy, and they're not serious about law and order. They're soft on crime. Well, Obama's top advisor is Zbigniew Brzezinski. Brzezinski gave an interview to the French press a number of years ago where he boasted about the fact that it was he who created the whole Afghan jihadi movement, the movement that produced Osama bin Laden. And he was asked by the interviewer, well, don't you think this might have had some bad consequences? And Brzezinski replied, absolutely not. It was definitely worth it because we were going after the Soviets. We were getting the Soviets. Another top Obama person.
I think his comment actually was, what's a few riled up Muslims? And that whole idea of blowback, the idea of arming, financing, training the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets, including Osama bin Laden. And then when they're done with the Soviets, they set their sights, well, on the United States.
And later, during Bill Clinton's administration, during the Bosnia killing, the U.S. actually flew some of the Afghan Mujahideen, the early al-Qaeda people. The U.S. actually arranged for them to be flown from there to Bosnia to fight on the Muslim NATO side. Another key Obama advisor, Anthony Lake, he was the main force behind the U.S. invasion of Haiti in the mid-Clinton years, during which they brought back Aristide, essentially in political chains, pledged to support a World Bank, IMF overhaul of the economy, which resulted in an increase in malnutrition deaths among Haitians, and set the stage for the current ongoing political disaster in Haiti. Another Obama advisor, General Merrill McPeak, an Air Force man, who not long after the Dili massacre in East Timor in '91, that you and I survived, he was, I happened to see on Indonesian TV shortly after that, there was General McPeak overseeing the delivery to Indonesia of U.S. fighter planes. Another key Obama advisor, Dennis Ross. Ross, for many years under both Clinton and Bush II, a key, Clinton, under both, he has advised Clinton and both Bushes. He oversaw U.S. policy toward Israel-Palestine. He pushed the principle that the legal rights of the Palestinians, the rights recognized under international law, must be subordinated to the needs of the state, of the Israeli government. In other words, their desires to expand, to do whatever they want in the occupied territories. And Ross was one of the people who, interestingly, led the political assault on former Democratic President Jimmy Carter. Carter, no peacenik. I mean, Carter is the one who bears ultimate responsibility for that Timor terror that Holbrooke was involved in. But Ross led an assault on him because, regarding Palestine, Carter was so bold as to agree with Bishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa that what Israel was doing in the occupied territories was tantamount to apartheid. And so Ross was one of those who fiercely attacked him. Another Obama advisor, Sarah Sewell, who heads a human rights center at Harvard and is a former defense official, she wrote the introduction to General Petraeus's Marine Corps Army counterinsurgency handbook. The handbook that is now being used worldwide by U.S. troops in various killing operations. That's the Obama team. If we were willing to enforce the murder laws, the headquarters of each of these candidates could be raided, and various advisors and many candidates could be hauled away by the cops because they have backed various actions that under established principles like the Nuremberg principles, like the principles set up in the Rwanda tribunals, the Bosnia tribunals, things that are unacceptable, like aggressive war, like the killing of civilians for political purposes. So in a basic sense, there is no choice, but there is a difference in this sense. The U.S. is so vastly powerful. The U.S. influences and has the potential to end so many millions of lives around the world that if, let's say, you have two candidates that are 99% the same, there's only a 1% difference between them, If you're talking about decisions that affect 1 million lives, 1% of 1 million is 10,000. That's 10,000 lives. So even though it's a bitter choice, if you choose the one who is going to kill 10,000 fewer people, well, then you've saved 10,000 lives. We shouldn't be limited to that choice. It's unacceptable, and Americans should start to realize that it's unacceptable. But that's the choice we have at the moment. Campaign contributions is just one of many tools that rich people have to get their way. There are basically two parallel factors in any democracy. One is one person, one vote. The other is $1, one vote. And those two are mixed together. So although the people do have some say, there are usually a lot more dollars out there than people, and they find ways of prevailing in the end, unless the people become aggressive and disruptive and demanding and threaten to shake the system so that big concessions are made.
You have long been writing about investigating the CIA and U.S. policy, whether it's in Central America or Asia. What are your thoughts on the destruction of these videotapes?
Well, one, and who knows, I'm skeptical that they've actually been destroyed. I mean, anyone who works with computers knows that it's almost impossible to truly eliminate something from a hard disk, and also that when there's a document, there are always multiple copies made, especially when you're in a network system. So I'd be surprised if this thing was really destroyed. But anyway, it's unfortunate that the issue of torture, I mean, it's good that the issue of torture has finally been put on the table of American politics, and people talk about it to some extent. But it's unfortunate that it's been put on the table in the context of the torture of these Al-Qaeda people, these people who are openly proud killers, mass murderers of civilians. In that context, a lot of people look at it and say, well, yeah, look at these, these lowlifes. Maybe they should be tortured. But the fact of the matter is, 90%, at least worldwide, of cases of torture are not of people like this who are open mass murderers. They are usually of dissidents, of rebels, or of common criminals. And often it is done by regimes that are armed, trained, or financed by the United States. This was the case in El Salvador. In El Salvador, I interviewed Salvadoran military people who told of torture training classes they got from CIA officials, and they talked about how the CIA people would be in the room as the torture sessions were going on. And these were not Al-Qaeda types that they were torturing. These were labor organizers. These were people who were speaking for justice. These were peasants. That's what most torture is in the world, and it should be completely banned and abolished. Not in the soft rhetorical way that McCain is talking about it, but actually stopping it by stopping support for all the forces that make a practice of torture